Story 1. He is basically a saint now, but I remember a time when Steve Irwin was criticized for being careless in how he handled animals. Many articles argued that he promoted behaviors that harmed the animals he was trying to conserve. He became seen as a poster child for conservationists acting more as an entertainer than as a scientist. Story 2. Whatever its claims, Queen isn't here just to entertain. This group has come to make it clear exactly who is superior and who is inferior. Its anthem, "We Will Rock You," is a marching order. You will not rock us, we will rock you. Indeed, Queen may be the first truly fascist rock band. The whole thing makes me wonder why anyone would indulge these creeps and their polluting ideas. Story 3. In the 2000s, Hilary Duff and Joel Madden dated. Hilary was 16 and Joel was 25. People online who discuss age gaps often repeat revisionist claims about how no one even cared to portray society as morally rotten, but in reality Hilary and Joel's relationship was a notable scandal at the time, not just in the tabloids and celebrity gossip circles but in mainstream media as well. My mother even knew about it, and we did not even have access to the Disney Channel. Every publication was critical of the relationship, and the general public's opinion ranged from, "Not my problem," to "Ooh, why?" Do not get me wrong. There was a lot of moral rot in the media during this time, but that relationship scandal was not indicative of it. Probably the only people who were openly fine with it were other 16-year-old girls who fantasized about dating members of Good Charlotte, which I found amusing. Story 4. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is the first one that comes to mind. People trashed it for the cartoony graphics when it came out, but now it is practically a sacred cow. Story 5. Black Sabbath, Billy Joel, and Kiss regularly received one-star reviews in Rolling Stone in the 1970s. All three are now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Story 6. A common but amusing remark is that you could not make the train scene in Spider-Man 2 today because everyone would pull out their phones and take photos of Spider-Man when he is unmasked, instead of respecting his privacy and promising not to tell anyone. People made that exact criticism when it was released in 2004. Story 7. When Pokemon Black and White came out, people tore it to shreds. It was the first mainline game that did not take place in Japan. None of the existing Pokemon were in it, and I don't know, maybe people found the characters annoying. There were a lot of changes, and people treated it like the absolute worst game and said it would torpedo the entire franchise. In the last couple of years, people have been heaping praise on Black and White, and many now act like nobody ever hated it. Black and White was the first set of games where I was actually following only discussions about it, so don't gaslight me, you all hated it. Story 8. Many people believe Stan Lee was an illustrator and the sole creator of many Marvel superheroes. He was a writer, often working in the Marvel method as a synopsis and dialogue writer, and he frequently received disproportionate credit. He never claimed to be the sole creator of his co-creations and often publicly praised the artists he worked with, because he was a skilled businessman who cultivated a public persona and made cameo appearances in Marvel films. Many came to think he was the illustrator of characters in which he had no hand in creating, such as Captain America. He was a capitalist, not meant as a derogatory comment. Story 9. The sudden narrative that Avatar 2009 wasn't a big deal. I distinctly remember people losing their minds over blue aliens and three-dimensional glasses for months. Don't gaslight me, internet. Story 10. This story of Medusa is very old. In the earliest sources, she was simply a monster, a woman born very ugly. Around 8 Common Era, Ovid wrote his Metamorphoses as a critique of the emperor, presenting the gods as cruel stand-ins for the emperor. He rewrote Medusa as a rape victim and then blamed her, which is the version most people seem to know today. More recently, some revisionists argue that Athena turned Medusa into a monster to protect her, overlooking that Athena later helped kill her. Story 11. Kobe Bryant. It is tragic that he died, and even more tragic that his child died with him, but people no longer seem to care about the rape charges. Story 12. I once heard a podcast host say she did not remember Justin Timberlake having anything to do with the Janet Jackson Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction. Just because Timberlake continued to have a career and Janet Jackson was canceled does not mean he was not 100% involved. He literally ripped off her clothes. How does one forget that part? Laughing out loud. Story 13. Some people say vinyl records are more pure and are how music is supposed to be listened to. No, they were not. They had a hissing sound and often skipped. My teenager got a record player and thought it was broken. Took me a while to convince them that this is how records actually sound. Story 14. The kids who only know Johnny Depp from his Pirates of the Caribbean films think he is a sweet Disney star. He spent years trashing hotels, drinking heavily, chain-smoking, using drugs, and being one of Hollywood's bad boys. He later received a Hollywood do-over and a rewritten public image. Story 15. I remember nearly everyone loved Mad Max Fury Road 2015, and I even saw it twice in theaters, which I rarely do. The movie was universally praised, essentially a 2-hour thrilling chase. But earlier this year, when Furiosa was released, which I have not seen, many people retroactively criticized Fury Road as overrated, woke, or dumb, and I felt like I was being gaslit for still loving it. Story 16. Do you mean pop culture revising people's general understanding of history, or people revising history about pop culture? If you mean the first category, the answer is Hamilton. Story 17. Neutral Milk Hotels in the Airplane Over the Sea suddenly became one of the biggest albums of the 1990s after more than 20 years of being virtually unheard of. Story 18. The Clinton sex scandal was a huge deal at the time. People from both parties called on him to resign, and many in the media called it the biggest scandal in United States history, even worse than Watergate. Today there is a lot of revisionism suggesting the public did not care about Clinton's sexual misconduct and that only a few Republicans made a fuss, but that was not the case at the time. Story 19. Every year, Halloween is an American import and has nothing to do with the United Kingdom. Oh my God. Have you heard the lyrics to Baby, It's Cold Outside? Story 20. Claims that the medieval era was completely misogynistic and that sexual violence was constant are exaggerated. The medieval era was not a feminist utopia, but women held important roles. They served as leaders, managed estates, and took over their husbands' duties, including farm work. Gender equality declined in the 1800s and began to improve again in the 1900s. Story 21. Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen did not reach #1 in the United Kingdom charts because of Freddie Mercury's death, but because of Wayne's World. Story 22. Contrary to the belief that people in the Middle Ages were dirty, they bathed regularly. They washed their hands and faces every day, gave their bodies a quick wash, and bathed fully once a week. People became much less clean in the early modern period. Story 23. Oldies and 1980s channels today in the United States play lots of the Smiths and other bands that were never hits there. No radio stations outside underground college stations played alternative music like that until after Nirvana emerged. Story 24. People joke about Mike Tyson biting a piece of Holyfield's ear and about him assaulting a man on a plane. He now promotes cannabis and mushrooms and hosts a podcast. Mike Tyson served time in prison after being convicted of rape. Story 25. Jerry Seinfeld was 38 and was dating a girl in high school. Story 26. In Sailor Moon, the original Japanese version depicts Sailor Neptune and Sailor Uranus as lovers. In the dubbed version, they were unfortunately portrayed as cousins. This erasure of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender representation was carried out by the Canadian company Optimum Productions. Story 27. John Lennon. Everything about him was either ugly or hypocritical. He treated women and his son poorly. He talked about imagining a world without money while living an aristocratic lifestyle. All around despicable. Story 28. The claim that moviegoers in the 1990s did not understand that Starship Troopers was a satire is false. They did, but the film performed poorly at the box office because restricted science fiction was not a large market at the time. Critics and fans understood the context and nuance of the film. Story 29. Donald Trump was a savvy, successful businessman. The TV show needed that to be true, and so it was. Story 30. When Heath Ledger was cast as the Joker, there was initial uproar, with many believing he was too pretty for the part. Following his untimely death and his outstanding performance, the role elevated him to legendary status. Story 31. I felt like I was in a weird time slip when Prince died and was treated so reverently, like a saint. He was a terrible person toward his wife, whom he groomed and forced to remain pregnant despite the baby having life-limiting conditions and her wish to have an abortion. Story 32. Just saying, the number of 1990s and 2000s wholesome wedding videos featuring church-approved music by R. Kelly. Story 33. Cleopatra was not black, and everyone responsible for that fake documentary should be shamed out of the industry for life. Story 34. Tesla versus Edison is a good example. The main feud over electricity was not between Tesla and Edison. It was between Westinghouse and Edison. Edison was an inventor and a businessman. He personally held 9 patents, and his company held hundreds. He invented the modern research laboratory. Much modern research follows this model. Some of this is used to discredit him as if he claimed too much, but Edison did invent many things himself and used his lab to produce modern innovations. Edison did, in fact, invent the light bulb. His early bulbs lasted 24 hours, about 23.9 hours longer than the next best competitor. His lab later improved them to last a week. Tesla worked in a laboratory. As with all employees, work done there typically becomes company property. A popular story says that Edison offered Tesla a large sum if he could solve a problem and then refused to pay him when Tesla solved it. The truth is that Edison only ever met Tesla when Tesla was working for Westinghouse. Edison did not steal from Tesla, since Tesla did not work at General Electric for very long. Tesla tried to set up his own company, but it failed. He struggled to invent without using existing Edison ideas. Tesla's only lighting project ran into trouble when it used 3 different Edison patents, including the Edison screw, in the construction of its bulbs. Westinghouse ended up supporting Tesla, and the two helped create the largest alternating current power network in America at the time. It had one problem: it could kill people. Tesla did not care about such dangers. Others later developed better insulating materials. The power systems of the time were very dangerous. Edison promoted the electric chair to demonstrate the dangers of alternating current. Tesla was not inactive. He did invent an alternating current motor. But many of his claimed achievements had been done by others earlier, such as his radio-controlled boat or his X-ray experiments. His biggest association was with the Hoover Dam, but he was connected to it in a manner similar to how inventor teams at laboratories get credit. He had a team of inventors while he accepted much of the credit. The myth that Tesla was a mega genius and Edison an evil businessman has become prominent. If you search the web for who invented alternating current, you will often find Tesla credited. But the principle of alternating current goes back to Michael Faraday almost a century earlier. Story 35. In the United Kingdom, Jade Goody became famous as a contestant on Big Brother. She returned on Celebrity Big Brother and was accused of racist bullying of Indian film star Shilpa Shetty. After Goody died of cancer, public sentiment shifted and she was remembered as a television personality. Story 36. That claim is false. Maybe a few people believed it was real, but newspapers, television shows, magazines, and online message boards existed in the 1990s. The idea that everyone thought it was real is revisionist history. The film was a hit because it introduced the found footage genre to a wide audience and because it was a very good movie. Story 37. People are saying how much they loved the Star Wars prequels. Story 38. Before he died, many people viewed him as a pedophile. After his death, many came out of the woodwork to say how much they loved Michael Jackson, including people who had previously offered insincere praise. Story 39. Ronald Reagan's mental competency during his second term. I have heard many people on the left claim that Reagan had dementia or other cognitive decline during his second term as president. The claims range from a speculative idea with little support to an asserted fact acknowledged by major figures. I have been unable to find any compelling evidence that Reagan suffered cognitive decline while in office. He completed his term when George Herbert Walker Bush was inaugurated in January 1989 and did not release a public letter acknowledging his decline until 1994. I can find no journalism, not even editorials or opinion pieces, expressing concerns about Reagan's mental health from 1994 or earlier. His chief of staff did consider examining Reagan to determine whether to invoke the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution and remove him from office. That inquiry was triggered not by suspected dementia but by despondency. Reagan's popularity fell after the Iran-Contra scandal, and he was so depressed that it interfered with his ability to perform his duties. His chief of staff evaluated whether he should be removed temporarily or permanently to ensure governance continued uninterrupted. Reagan recovered. Over time, his approval ratings began to rise. There is no evidence that Reagan experienced cognitive decline while in office. His fitness for office was examined and affirmed, and concerns about dementia did not register at the time. The diagnosis of dementia is a post facto interpretation. Reagan made many controversial and damaging decisions, but he made them with control of his faculties. Story 40. There is a strong trend on the social media platform formerly known as Twitter of people talking about Hitler as a misunderstood, genuinely progressive, nation-loving leader who just wanted the best for his country. Story 41. Giuliani said there were no terrorist attacks when George Walker Bush was president. Story 42. This is a recent example. When Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation 5 was released last year, most people praised the game. A few months later, many people online criticized it. I saw the same pattern with Spider-Man: No Way Home. Story 43. Reddit thought that Mother Teresa was running a Slanish death cult. None of that happened. Christopher Hitchens largely made those claims based on the unavailability of certain painkillers in her area and treating that as if she were deliberately withholding them. The idea that Thomas Edison was a hack who never did anything is false. He was a skilled inventor, though narcissistic and prone to taking credit from others. Story 44. The film The Dish is inaccurate. Honeysuckle Creek, just west of Canberra, was where the world first saw the live pictures. The park's observatory and its dish did not receive the television signal of the initial step onto the moon during Apollo 11 because the park's dish was too large to operate safely in the high winds and the Goldstone Deep. Space Communications Complex mishandled the broadcast preparation. They were important, but they were not on air when Neil Armstrong took his famous first step on the moon. Parks provided the feed starting 7 minutes later, and the town's entire industry built around the moon landing narrative is misleading. Story 45. The Runaways were not an influential women's band. Most people had not heard of them. They received little radio play and could barely play their instruments. Story 46. Mike Tyson as a lovable, affable, cool guy who is a bit dim-witted but essentially harmless. Story 47. When people say Friends invented sarcasm, it's as if the rest of the world was humorless until 1994. Story 48. That Blue Monday would be used to sell cars, insurance, groceries, or whatever in an ad shown in a contemporary multiplex. I do not mind New Order earning money, but the song is about Ian Curtis taking his own life and always carries that dark emotional undertone for me. I hope they were paid well. Story 49. The Star Wars prequel trilogy is seen as great nowadays, but back then it was not so well regarded. Story 50. Conspiracy theories and misinformation are now a major issue. For example, after September 11, 2001, it was common to hear people say the attacks were an inside job or staged. Michael Moore released a documentary presenting that case. Alex Jones made similar claims. Even elected political leaders, such as Howard Dean, insinuated that the Bush family was behind it. Story 51. Princess Diana was a martyred saint. She endured a great deal of mistreatment from Charles and the royal family, but she could give as good as she got and did not hesitate to do so. Story 52. Look at what Swifties claim Taylor Swift has done to change the music industry. She made a dent, but she was not the first to do everything. For example, inspiring a generation of singer-songwriters is not unique to her. Story 53. The claim that the nuclear bombs dropped at the end of World War II were completely unnecessary and that Japan was not really that bad, supposedly because of anime. Story 54. This whole Wicked thing I find less than palatable. She wanted to kill Dorothy and Toto, to murder a little girl and her dog. She literally set the scarecrow on fire. We were all happy when she melted down into nothingness. You're lying if you say you weren't. Spare me the modern revisions and social commentary. Thanks. Story 55. Many people post about the 1980s and 1990s as if they were a puritanical dark age, with ankles barely showing and no access to pornography. Wearing lingerie as outerwear was common in the 1980s. Leggings were worn everywhere. It was popular to take regular clothing and cut it so it barely covered things. Even men's shorts were high and tight. I was lucky to be young enough that I did not have to worry about that and could wear lighter clothing even in summer. Pornography was not just sold in adult stores. It was available at gas stations, convenience stores, and grocery stores. Some of those places did not restrict who could buy it. Story 56. James Kirk, a reckless womanizer, comes to mind. He was far more professional than Jean-Luc Picard. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.